Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leading with Agility, the show that uses the world around us to explore how leadership can be inspired by agility. I'm your host, Arif, and as always, I'm joined by
myself, TK, your usual unusual host, our co-host.
Thanks, TK. And welcome back, listeners, to another episode of our show. And in today's episode, we are delighted to be introducing Riccardo Gine, who is a experienced technical project management expert, but also has discovered his true passion in storytelling and leadership development, and is a dedicated Toastmasters member, a public speaking coach who helps leaders connect through the power of authentic stories, transforming the way they lead and inspire. So delighted to have you with us, Riccardo. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Arif and TK, to have me. I'm very happy to be here with you today.
Amazing, thank you. And as regular listeners will know, I ask this to all of our guests when we start an episode, and that is a broad question around leadership and what it means to our guests. So, Riccardo, if I ask you the question around what leadership means to you, maybe share some of your thoughts, but also bring into that your background and also your expertise in storytelling, and perhaps enlighten our audience about the world of leadership from your perspective.
Sure, absolutely. So let's start talking about what is a leadership for me. When I think about leadership, always comes in my mind a quote that says, "A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." I think it's a very well-known quote, but describe very well what is leadership for me. Leadership, I'm very connected to what is a servant leader style. The servant leader style, I don't have to tell you, it's someone that is very focused on collaboration. It's a very focused on making sure that his team, the person that work with him, have always the possibility to do their work without micromanagement, huge delegation, focus on listening, all these things that most probably you know very well. Why I landed in storytelling and why storytelling then is very important with leadership. I am a project and program management, and I'm a very big fan of technology. So for most of my career, I've been technical project and program manager. Then I land end of my career as a PMO lead in technology, digital transformation program, and in the end, consulting technology. So I'm very, very kind of a project manager kind of background. However, maybe because I'm Italian, maybe because I attended Toastmaster International. We can talk later if you want to this. It seems that in my past 7-8 years, in my company, I start helping my colleagues that were technical people, technical project manager, in having a better way to communicate their information, a better way to do status reporting, just to say something that is very boring, but not only status reporting. I mean, leadership needs really to have a way to communicate better. So I'm going to stop here. And then we will go more in detail of my thinking about the leadership and why I'm ending in storytelling coaching.
Thank you, Riccardo. Thanks for sharing some of that with us. And yeah, you're right. Servant leadership is something we've talked about a number of times on our show already, and I'm sure it's familiar to many of our listeners. But going back to the point about storytelling, and I think it would be useful if you could share with us what brought storytelling to your attention, and how did that come about? And also, further on from that is why do you believe in it so much? So yeah, just tell us the background. Where did it come from? Why are you so passionate about it?
Yes, Arif. So as I mentioned before, when I moved to UK, I started attending a public speaking club. It's called the Toastmaster International, and I found that I was not only good on speaking in public and doing speeches, but I was also very good in coaching, training, mentoring people. And at a certain point, I started in the club delivering workshop about how you can let's say empower, you can elevate your public speaking skills. And I found that storytelling as a technique was working very well. Let me dig a little bit better on what storytelling means, because this is a very important point.
Yeah, well, let's enlighten our audience.
Yeah, exactly. Many people, when storytelling is a buzzword, and many people, when you speak about storytelling, you speak about telling stories, of course, things that, especially in a business environment, you start with the once upon a time, and then you tell a story and blah, blah. Yes, exactly. It's storytelling, especially in business environment, but not only in business environment. It's I would like to say completely different things. It's a group of skills, it's a group of techniques. Of course, it's all based on the fact that you tell a story, and we will go back on what exactly is a story. But it's a technique that is a group of techniques that help you to be engaging, compelling, and in the end, memorable. You really don't need to tell a story with the hero, with the monsters, or things like that. It's not like fairy tale talking. It's using some technique that engage. Yes, engage the attention.
What I'm interested in, actually, and I think most of our listeners would also be interested in hearing, is like, okay, so we'll talk about these techniques further on, I'm sure, but people usually want to hear the benefits up front. So if they want to invest in this skill, if they want to invest in this technique in the world of work, especially when they're leaders, how would you pitch it to them? What are the benefits?
I got this question in the past 2 weeks. I think 5 or 6 times. Yeah, exactly. They said, what are the benefits? And so the benefits are the following. I think that everyone can agree that a good leader should be also a good communicator. That's a very nice statement. Yeah, you need to communicate. I mean, when you study project management, someone tell you, okay, project management, 90% is communication, and leadership is exactly the same. How you can be a leader, how you can be a good leader if you cannot communicate your idea. But how storytelling plug into this? Why not just public speaking? The point is, and it's a very human kind of thing. So when you communicate, so just not talk about speaking or speeches or keynotes. Okay, when you communicate, I'm communicating with you right now. I'm communicating with the public that is listening to the podcast. When you communicate, if I list a fact, is I say, oh yeah, this is a very important, because if you do public speaking, everyone is listening to you. If you are able, let's say, to use the right word, you are connecting better with the audience. But you know what? If I create a list after 10 minutes of this podcast, no one will remember it. Yeah. If I tell you a story that there were a leader that coming into a corporate event and going on the stage and telling his story of how he became a leader, what was his struggle, why he was so passionate about the specific area he was working on. I assure you, people will remember. Maybe won't remember the name of the leader, probably, but will remember the guy that went on the stage, the senior manager that went on the stage, and make them feeling, empowered, inspired.
Yeah, remember how you made them feel, right? That's one of the key things for a great communicator, a great speaker, and it's wonderful that this is a great benefit, and for many people, I think it rings true. But you've mentioned that there are a set of techniques, so it's not a buzzword. So what I'm really interested in, and I think our listeners would be interested in, is like, can you give us a whistle-stop tour through the components of storytelling and these techniques? How do you know you're storytelling?
So the storytelling techniques are connected to our human behavior. Yuval Harari, in his books, I think you know who Harari is. He stated one between many things, but he stated one very important thing. As a human, what makes us human? What makes us different from any other species in the world that have a kind of brain and social structure? And there was also a beautiful TED talk about this. Is the ability to tell stories, and the ability to tell stories is not just the fact that you build your communication in a way that the other humans perceive it as a story. And then we'll talk about the element of the story in a second. But the point is that this elicits imagination in the brain of the people that are close to you. So this is exactly leadership. One person tell a story about religion. One person tell a story about the stars, and create a connection between different, let's say, point in the sky and say, oh, this is Orion. This is the story of Orion. And everyone believe on it because this is a connection related to the story, and because the story elicits imagination in the audience. That's exactly why storytelling is so powerful. If I start telling, okay, that star is one of the 5 stars that the constellation of Orion, that constellation, I tell you that numbers, and is a far like 16 light year from the Earth, and I tell you all the data. Yeah, that's very interesting, but they're really not making any emotion in you. If I tell you that Orion was in the sky, these are the footpath of Orion's in the sky, and the stars are the proof that Orion's once was on the Earth. This make you remembering better the story of Orion's, and maybe you don't know the name of the stars, but next time that is dark, and you are with a friend and you say, "Oh, look, this is Orion." You recognize the constellation quickly, even though you are not an astronomer. You see what is the difference of a good story that elicit emotion, connect some interesting fact in the end with just a list of information.
So, Riccardo, thanks for that. What I'm understanding, or what I guess our listeners are understanding, is it's how can you explain a topic or get facts across in a way that is memorable, that an audience can easily recall, that they can easily take some learning and benefit from. Is that really at the essence of what the benefit of storytelling for you?
Yes, I think you refer to the elements of that makes a communication a story, right?
Right.
So when I in my previous company, I've been because my ability to teach, because I was good in the storytelling, I've been in the leadership and development organization as a volunteer storytelling master, and there were a program. Yeah, there were a program that was run every year for all the people that was promoted from senior management to director level or associate director level, and it was with a lot of fantasy. Was called the Leadership Development Program, LDP. So it's very
quite a standard name, yes.
LDP, Leadership Development Program. But the point is, within this program, there were one different elements, but there were one things that all the participants have to be in a group and create a, let's say, fictional project or a case study, and then go in front of the very senior, let's say, leadership, and talk about their project, talk about the benefit, and so on. So the company asked the master storytellers like me to help the people that was the leader that was participating to the leadership development program to not just create slides, packet of data, and go in front of the leadership with like talking for 10 minutes about blah, 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 but making the information compelling and engaging. And the way to do this you tell a story. You tell a story on, for example, sustainability. You tell a story on how sustainability is important. You tell a story related to, for example, your project that can be, just try to remember, can be, for example, green recycling or part of the cars or battery improvement. You tell the story in an angle that is not just facts. It's not just, oh, this is working because of this percentage of recycling is helping the climate. These are the graph. It's telling a story, for example, of one person that was driving his car, and then he was going to have a new car, and there was a recycling. I'll just give you an example. So the element of the communication that makes a story are very simple. You need to have a protagonist that can be a person, can be a society, can be a thing. Then you need to create a moment of emotions, some goals, some obstacles, something that makes the story appealing. But they really don't need it to be something like a monster or things like that. I mean, we will go on this, but it seems that you needed to tell a story that something prevent the reaching of the goal. And then finally, there is a big theme. So if I may, I mean, I don't want to talk too much, but if I may, would like to give an example. Okay, one example that I do in my training is the story is a story of innovation. So I tell upfront it's a story of innovation, and then the story is the story of blockbusters and Netflix. Mm-hmm. Many people knows this story.
It's a big one, of course.
It's a big one. It's a very common story in a business environment to tell the story of innovation. But the point is that one. If I tell you that Netflix was trying to innovate and at the time try to ask, knock on the door of Blockbuster for some money, and Blockbuster says no, and today Netflix is big one and Blockbuster doesn't exist. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's not captivating. The way that you tell the story, the way that you articulate the communication is in different way. You go and say, I'm going to tell you a story of innovation. I'm going to tell you why company needs always to look and strive for innovation. One time, Blockbuster in 80s was the biggest company in the world and have a 6 billion of revenue. And sitting on this staggering stack of revenues, a small startup, very small startup people went to the door of the CEO of Blockbuster, knocked to the door asking for $5 million, just $5 million for half of the shares of the company, Netflix. They have a brilliant idea. Why having people go into the shop to rent the movie, and instead we can send the movie by post, or eventually we can stream the movie? And they really were laughed off from the door. And really they were kicked off from the door. And I mean, the company really struggled, was really on the point to give up. And now what happens? That the Netflix is the big player, continuing, innovating, and Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. If I tell you the story...
But also Netflix is also struggling sometimes, right? You know, there's been ebbs and flows, and they had this thing with sharing passwords, which they've stopped. And, you know, it's an interesting thing to see how they battled in this field, which is probably another topic for a podcast. But I'm wondering about one thing, Riccardo. In the modern day and age, what happens is people like, you know, you've got TikToks, YouTube Shorts and everything. And as people listen to this podcast, they would see that, you know, obviously yourself as a master storyteller, you like to bring these stories forward. You like to immerse people in these stories. And, you know, there might be some skeptics, there might be some even cynics that would say, well, you know, how do I know he's storytelling and not just waffling? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's why you need some practice. That's why I talk about techniques.
So what techniques were you using with us?
Some techniques are, for example, you need, first of all, I mean, it's not a technique, practice makes everyone good, if not perfect. I mean, perfection is always, let's say, an aspire. Okay, also the biggest speakers in the world, they are not perfect. If you are a Toastmaster and you listen people speaking on the stage, you always find that something can be better, but also it's all depending from the audience. But the point is, what are the elements that makes a communication, a story, and not waffling and not just talking? There are techniques. One of the main techniques that I recommend is the following. Always think that communication is based on three elements. Okay, and the three elements are the content, the structure, and the delivery. So always when you are talking, consider the three elements, I call it the three pillars of a communication. I mean, it's not a Riccardo idea, it's a Cicero idea 2000 years ago. Cicero came out with this. I mean, it's not a Riccardo idea. And before Cicero was Aristoteles. But the point is, every communication, when you start talking, needs to based on these three pillars. If you don't balance these three pillars, your communication could be waffling. If you just have a content, blah, 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 without structure, you are waffling. If you put a structure, you have a good opening, you have a body, you have a conclusion of what you're saying, it's a communication that is, it's not waffling. If you have a good delivery, add emotions, you close to the storytelling.
But the interesting thing is, Riccardo, if I may, listeners might know that I've been a Toastmaster, and actually this is how we've met. And what I find, obviously, you're absolutely right with these 3 points. And there is obviously other models too, and I'm sure you're going to share. But the interesting thing is, it's all well and good when you have, if anyone of our listeners is familiar with Toastmasters or actually making presentations, you usually have time to prepare. What we're talking about here is like you're on a podcast with us and we're like bouncing questions at you. And yet you probably want to keep your, you can practice your delivery, as I hope I do, but you also need the structure and the content. So how do you do it in the nick of time, in the moment? How do you constantly tell stories?
You say a magic word, practice. you already answered. It's a practice. It's all about practice. Storytelling, communication is a skill. It's a skill like running. It's a skill like playing table tennis. It's a skill as everything. As much as practice, as much you get good, and as much you get flexible, and your brain start reasoning and answering, following the structure.
That's brilliant, right? And obviously, one would say that we've talked about Toastmasters, and possibly it's like maybe we'll even put a link in the podcast notes. It's a great place to practice your storytelling. But I'm keen to talk about the point, how to actually find this practice in organizations and so on. But every time you practice, you probably need a bit of time to prepare yourself, a bit of time to reflect. And as always, we want to give our audience a gift of time to reflect throughout a short break.
As we head into the Xmas and New Year break, we wanted to say a huge thank you from all of us at Humble Associates for listening to our podcast. This episode marks the end of Season 2, and it's been a real pleasure being able to share some wonderful guests, insights, and stories. We'll be back next year, so keep an eye out across LinkedIn to find out more. So on behalf of both myself and TK, thank you and see you soon. We're back again, continuing the conversation with Riccardo, and for our listeners, I hope hearing some of his thoughts on how to structure storytelling, how to make storytelling effective for your audience is proving to be enlightening. And as TK was saying before we went for a break, there are places, there are settings where you can go and practice some of this skill. But I wanted to bring it back to the workplace and leadership more specifically, if we can. Riccardo, as you described a lot around the skill of storytelling, from your experience, could you share a story of how storytelling has transformed a leader's way of working and what the impact has been on their leadership style?
Yes, well, I don't have a specific story. I could not tell a specific story about one leader, but as I mentioned before, I started teaching storytelling in my previous company, consulting, technology consulting company, large one, and one of the leadership skills that was required for all the level from manager to senior manager up was exactly storytelling. So the company was pushing very hard on making sure that his management, their leader, were able not just to communicate, but articulate a compelling communication. That is a big difference because, again, everyone can talk, okay? Everyone can, someone have a fear of the stage. We can go over if you want on this. But the point is, let's assume that going in a meeting and doing a status reporting, let me do a very simple, basic kind of communication, okay? Not just talking about keynotes or team building, something like status reporting is happening every week. Every week you are in front of the client, and every week you need to tell the client what's going on, if it's good, if it's bad. The way you articulate your status reporting, the way that you highlight the things that are important for you and for the client is a key skill. And storytelling, not just telling a story like once upon a time, but the skill of using emotion, using your voice to highlight the key elements of the situation are precious. I see so many time delivery manager, delivering a status report, putting on the same level green things that are going well and red things that needs attention.
Yeah,
and the day after, and the week after, the client was completely forgetting and say, "Oh, now we are in escalation mode. I told you last week," and the client say, "Oh yeah, I didn't hear. I don't remember that I told you. You tell me this. You tell me these things last week." So it's very important. If you are waiting for the client an approval, you need to say, here, we need an approval because this, and that. You need to add, someone say spice, someone had the detail, whatever it is. You needed to use voice, you needed to use pace, you needed to use a structure to exactly tell to the client what you need, when you need, why you need it. It's not just reading the slide. It's much more. That's why storytelling can improve the leadership. That's answering to your question.
Right? No, I get it, and actually improving the leadership, as you said, right? But as always, ourselves working in leadership development, people ask us, okay, TK Arif, or to our team members, give us some quick tips. What can I do specifically now when I, finish this podcast? How is it when I'm having a business presentation, a status report? What 3 tips would you give me to change immediately about how I deliver it?
Yes, I think the 3 tips that everyone can do at home are, first of all, make a little bit of practice. It doesn't matter if it's take the next status report or take the last status report and try to tell the status report in a different way. Record yourself. Right. So try to something that you have already done. Tell 2 or 3 times, but make experiments. Don't be shy. You are at home. You are in with your mobile. No one is listening to you. Make experiment, and then re-listen. That's my first recommendation. Just today it's so easy. Record yourself with something that you are used to do every day. It's a status report. You are a salesperson. You go to the client selling something. Repeat the last selling points for your presentation. That's point number 1. Record yourself and re-listen yourself. Do you like how you are speaking? Do you like what you are saying? And this is number 1. Number 2, when you listen yourself, try to change one thing at a time. You don't like the voice, you don't like the pace, you don't like the whatever it is, the structure. Change one thing, not everything. Focus just on one thing. You want to have you want to be more structured. You want to be more synthetic. Sometimes you recognize that you are waffling. You recognize, oh, you are talking too much. So you say, okay, I want to say things in a less time. So start timing yourself. Repeat and start making sure that you can tell it in 2 minutes, okay, or in 1 minute. And finally, number 3, find someone that you can work with. It doesn't matter if he's an experienced coach. Of course, I recommend that he be an experienced coach like me. But
we'll put the link in the podcast description.
Yes, of course. I cannot recommend more to work with a storytelling coach like me. But the point is, you can do it. You cannot do it with your dog because the dog is not giving you a feedback. But talk with your mother.
Depends on how intelligent your dog is. But go ahead. Yeah, the mother might be more helpful.
Yeah, the mother is perfect. I mean, if you have the chance to speak with your mother or your 6-year-old kids or 10 years old kid, is perfect, because these people needs that you explain things in a very simple, clear way.
Oh, that's a
because they
thing,
instead
right?
they don't understand. But if you have just a colleague, just ask a colleague. Listen, how went my status report last time? Be very transparent. How do you think that I needed to improve? Tell me one thing that really I needed to improve. Tell me one thing that you think that I needed to improve. I can assure you will get the feedback.
Brilliant 3 tips. Thank you, Riccardo. I think, to share some of my stories, I love your first tip about, there's a common misconception that you should actually practice your communication in front of the mirror. Never do that, because obviously you're talking and receiving at the same time, right? Due to the nature of the speed of light. Recording yourself is great. The story I will share is, as we've started this podcast, our regular listeners might know that at first I was actually not happy with the quality of my audio, and I thought, despite myself editing it, Arif actually sounded better. I spent so much time investing in audio processing and getting a new proper microphone, but I do hope that I do have a nice sound now. And an interesting thing, Riccardo, you said about timing yourself, that's quite brilliant, and I think it's quite important to do. The one tip I will share myself, when I'm always practicing, not anymore as much, but I've been definitely doing that. I've got this mechanical stopwatch, and I've always talk by triggering the stopwatch to run, deliver my thing, and always look at it and repeat. So I always constantly think about time, right? Which is quite important. And thank you for your brilliant tips. I'm hoping that my add-ons will also help. About the voice, I think you might know the thing that when we hear ourselves, when we listen to ourselves recorded, obviously the sound is different. The microphone or the medium is just different because we hear our voice through our skull, and it's a completely different one. So when you hear your voice being recorded on a device, it will sound different. You might not like and enjoy it, and you might go like me for audio engineering. Don't give it a break. As you say, ask for people's opinion, because your voice might actually be quite okay. But moving on, Riccardo, there's one point I wanted to make still, which is, okay, well, people are interested, right? I'm sure that they appreciate how storytelling is important, after all we've talked about. What I'm interested in is, when it comes to that, when you are actually invited into an organization as a consultant, as a storytelling coach, how do you actually get on to teaching people that? What's the program? How do you do it practically? How do you practically teach and help people develop their storytelling skills as leaders in organizations?
That's a $1 million question.
Well, we're not a cheap podcast.
No, you know better than me that organization, especially HR and leadership development organization, have a constraint of budget. People have a constraint of time. So the way you teach these skills is it's a variable. The point is, if I can tell you the optimum approach, I think that the optimum approach is it's a module that now I see, and I have developed also with other storytelling coach that I know. It's 2 hours and a half every week for 6 weeks. So 6 modules of 2 hours, 2 hours and a half for a duration of 5 or 6 weeks. This allowed to have a good balance between the amount of hours, the amount of hours that people needs to invest, the time between each lesson, and the pace of the learning. So this is really helping bringing people from like no storyteller to having the tools, to having the experience. I've also experienced how to tell the stories. This is the better approach. Yeah. But sometimes you have companies that tell you, oh, Riccardo, you have a 1 hour, come and tell us about storytelling. Oh, Riccardo, you have 3 hours. Can you deliver a storytelling intro? And also the number of people, because if I have a class of 6 people, I can let people testing and I can give them the feedback. So small classes allow me as a coach not only to listen, but as a Toastmaster, you know that this is so important. Getting an evaluation. Getting an evaluation help every speaker to focus on key things and start working on them. So small classes help, let's say, to people also to get an evaluation from the coach, get an evaluation from the other people, and listen to their voice and test it. If you have a big class, well, you can ask people to talk each other, but of course it could be less effective. To conclude this, I would like to mention one thing that it's now really, really close to my new business and my new approach to storytelling. I'm using a Lego to elicit story to help people to find their inner storyteller. I'm using a methodology that is coming from the Lego Serious Play. Maybe you have heard before. It's a methodology.
We did. Yeah, it's a great method, of course.
Yeah, and I'm a Lego Serious Play certified, but I'm using the Lego Serious Play as a starting point to help people to find that they are storyteller, and to help people to, especially in large audience, to focus on telling stories. Because when you build anything in Lego, and people focus, and then you tell the story of what you have built, people focus on it. It's a great new technique that I'm using, and I'm starting, let's say, delivering right now.
It's absolutely a brilliant technique. We're using it quite a lot, and it really helps by shifting the channel from like even talking first or writing to assembling it with Legos. And it really, this shift elicits people's thoughts and creativity. We're using it quite a lot, and I'm glad to hear that other wonderful practitioners like yourself are. But in terms of tools, maybe one last avenue I wanted to explore is you've mentioned when we've talked that, and also when we recently we've met at a conference, and a lot of people are actually looking into AI as something that can support them. So I'm wondering, as also we've mentioned AI, how can it help in storytelling? How can it be a great tool, especially in this dawn of this new era?
Yeah, I created an event on this, a webinar on this, and the point is the following: is AI is great. I mean, there is no point to say that AI is not great, and there are so many applications, so many things. Yeah, no, absolutely. The things is that there are AI can help in many ways, okay, but AI is not replacing our human capacity to tell the story. AI can help me to evaluate. There are now so many tools that I'm speaking, and then after in a meeting, it's not just a note taker. It tells me how many times I'm using filler words. It's telling how many the tone I'm changing. I mean, there are so many applications that helps every speaker they listen to the speaker and then provide feedback. And now the AI also provide the feedback on which kind of word you're using with the pace. I mean, it's not just it's very advanced, because of course is a artificial intelligence. It's like listening to you, and it's absolutely great as a starting point. AI can help definitely, let's say, to write your speech. It's so simple.
Ooh, yes,
I mean,
okay.
also ChatGPT, the free version. You ask ChatGPT, I needed to write a speech with this specific business need, and I would like to bring some business stories, and ChatGPT brings you all the beautiful scripts, and then you say, oh, I need 2 minutes, 300 words, and they refine it. But the point is, all these tools are tools. So when a ChatGPT writes a speech for you, it's a beautiful speech, but it's not your speech. It's not resonating with you.
Point.
And then you could be if you are one of the best speaker, most probably you make the speech your speech. You will have a way to do it. But if you're not a good speaker and then just read on the screen because the ChatGPT bring you the ideas, you sound not authentic. So my recommendation is definitely the following. AI is providing a great amount of tools to improve your storytelling, your public speaking, helps so much. But always make sure that you speak and tell stories that resonate with you. Make sure that when you're walking down to the street, notice things that one day can be the seed of your next stories. You notice sometimes the best stories, the best speeches are coming from things that are completely unrelated from what you are, from the topic that you want to bring. I mean, I can talk for hours on this, but I think
sure
that you got the point.
No, but it's really great that, to treat it as a tool, but be authentic and also like be open for inspiration, right? What comes to you? What's the story that appears for you? So,
Yes.
Arif, what's the story that's appearing for you today in this conversation?
Well, thank you, TK, for that. And thank you, Riccardo, for your lovely insights today. And I think what's interesting to me is the accessibility of it. And it might seem like something that's difficult to get started with. But I think, Riccardo, you've done a good job of highlighting how accessible this technique can be. And there are ways that you can, in private settings, get familiar with it, practice with it, as you've shared, before trying it out in the workplace. I probably would say that you need to create a safe environment, of course, in the workplace for you to try anything out, so that you're comfortable and people around you can also be comfortable, right? So that's also part of it.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Sorry if you say nice things. A safe environment in a business setting. I think one of the great things, for example, at Toastmaster, that you can create a corporate club, and in a corporate club you can practice public speaking or storytelling, whatever it is a safe and constructive environment. I think this is the key things. Most of the time, people fear to use storytelling or fear to communicate, but fear to use storytelling because they have a fear of the judgment, have a fear of people think that what they are doing is silly. So safe environment in a learning settings, especially for leadership, it's a key thing. So I think, Arif, you say a thing that I really would like to highlight that is very important.
Yeah, and I think I completely agree, and it's one of the things we do in our leadership development journeys. But I guess it's an episode that's not this one, a story for another one. So maybe ending this, one thing, Riccardo, all this lovely stuff, and I'm sure that a lot of people, our listeners, are enamored with what you do. What if they want to read more? What if they want to find you? Where should they reach out? Where can they learn more about you?
I think that the best way is it's looking for me in LinkedIn for the moment. My website is a very dry list of facts. So best way is connect with me in LinkedIn, drop me a message, and I will be very happy to answer to questions. Even though if you have questions, I mean, just drop me a message, and it's the best way to connect with me. Via
Brilliant.
LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Riccardo. We'll obviously put your profile in the podcast notes so everyone can quickly click. It's there as you're listening. And follow Riccardo and message him, start a conversation so you can listen to some great stories. Riccardo, thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure. I'm hoping that you had also a good time in this conversation.
Absolutely, it was amazing talk with you, talk with the audience that of course cannot interact too much in that moment, but was a very great that you have me, and Thank you so much.
So with that, thank you so much, Riccardo. Thank you so much, our listeners, for listening in. As always, we would love if you could subscribe and like our podcast on your wonderful platform. And it wouldn't go amiss if you wrote us a review, hopefully a positive one. With all that, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being our lovely listeners. And as always, we'll see you next time for the next episode of our podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.